Between the flesh eaters and that wraith eyeing us, the super trees would be no walk in the park.
We had to get moving and stay out of sight.
But they weren't our only concern. Winslow Accord picked up chatter ahead. Apparently, we weren't the only humans using the docks to escape. Winslow Accord picked up chatter ahead. Apparently, we weren't the only humans using the docks to escape. The super tree was collapsing. The only safe route to the docks was up. Chatter confirmed that 54 immortals were scrambling to get out of the biodomes through the swamps. The super tree was collapsing. The only safe route to the docks was up. Chatter confirmed that 54 immortals were scrambling to get out of the biodomes through the swamps. From the sound of it, they wanted us dead as much as the flesh eaters did. Looked like we were jumping from one bad situation into another. Hendricks commandeered an airboat and set the autopilot. We had undead right behind us, and more 54I ahead. And that rogue Wraith wasn't done with us yet. Our exfil was just ahead. We were getting out of sync.
What about Taylor? What did Hendricks learn from the server?
Nothing. It had been wiped. Taylor was in the wind. And the virus, 6115, wouldn't stop this time. The Winslow Accord and CDP had been thrown into chaos. We'd lost Hong Kong, Berlin, and Cairo. And it was just getting started. What would come next? How the world would change? There was no way to be ready for that. "5 years. 5 long, dark years. Opening the quarantine zones did exactly as we feared, and by 2075, what was a contained situation gave way to anarchy. Humanity's numbers had been reduced to a few hundred mil scattered across the globe. Our target was a Catardus colony. They'd taken over a refinery. It was a well-armed facility protecting them and the dead they worshipped. Top priority was to cut off their comms and leave them in the dark. But first, we had to clear out their defenses. This was a routine sweep. Every time another sympathizer colony sprouted up, we'd squash it back down. As far as we were concerned, we were doing the world a favor. We moved on the array, but the undead sympathizers weren't going down without a fight. Our support detail needed a few moments to disable the array. Lucky for me, I had more hostiles to keep me occupied. Disabling the comms would take some time. Our support detail dealt with that. I dealt with reinforcements. The station disabled, we had to get back to our bird. The array was ahead. Bring it down, we'd be one step closer to eradicating this colony. Disabling the comms would take some time. Our support detail dealt with that. I dealt with reinforcements. With the comms disabled, we needed to get back in the air. With their comms jammed, the next step was to breach the control room to take back the facility. There was access ahead. I just needed to get through the flooded room in front of me. Our support detail insisted on coming with.
When you were swimming, something went wrong.
Our D&I. There was a malfunction.
What did you see?
I saw... I was drowning. I thought I heard...
This is not your time. Get back up. Do not trust him. Everything is not what it seems.
What did you hear?
Nothing. I couldn't make it out.
Get up.
And I woke up. Someone pulled me out of the water. Someone saved me.
Saved you?
A guardian angel. Someone watching over me. My support detail. She got through somehow and pulled me out. She brought me back from the brink. She said it wasn't my time. My work wasn't done. I had to stop Taylor. I don't know how she knew. It didn't make any sense.
Did you know her? This woman?
No. I'd never worked with her before today.
And yet she knew about Taylor. She knew about what happened. And you're sure she was there?
What? Why? You think I made her up?
You yourself said your DNI systems were malfunctioning.
What? You gonna tell me I'm crazy next? I know what I saw. I did not make her up. I didn't imagine her.
Did she have a name?
Of course she had a f***ing name. The Guardian Angel. She said her name was Kane. She told me she'd help me get through this. She said we had to move. Control was beyond a server room ahead. If we were going to take the refinery from these dead sympathizers, we needed to clear it out. If we couldn't, it would be on to Plan B.
Plan B?
Plan bomb this. We prepped to breach, but it turns out our enemies planned ahead. The explosion blocked our path. We had to double back. It caught us off guard. But the noise also caught the undead's attention. She thought that. How she knew that. It was surreal. When Khalil took the control room, he found something on the security footage. Something we needed to see.
Taylor.
Like seeing a ghost. We just stumbled upon him. This wasn't just a Quatardus colony. This was Taylor's hideout. They were already evacuating Taylor. We locked down the facility, separating Taylor and his associate, Moretti.
Who did you go after?
It was too late for Taylor. The Quatardus put him on a VTOL. We'd go after Moretti. Command informed us the kill order was still active. Hendricks didn't like that, but it wasn't his call.
How did you feel about it?
5 years. 5 years later, and we could fix our past mistakes. I'd gladly take the shot. Moretti was just below us. If we were gonna get him, we'd need to take a shortcut.
Shortcut?
A leap of faith.
Listen to her. Trust her. Find Taylor.
How was Hendricks coping with the change of plans?
He was upset. And why wouldn't he be? Command wanted our friends dead. He wanted to bring Moretti in alive.
But that wasn't all, was it?
No, Hendricks had been different since Singapore.
In what way?
Every way. Aggressive, angry. He was losing perspective.
You cornered him. What did Moretti say?
He said that name. Same as Diaz. Deimos. He said if I wanted answers, I had to find Damien Bishop, a man we both knew from a past mission. Bishop could help stop Deimos. But first, I had to kill him. He kept saying, "This isn't me. This isn't me." He kept saying Deimos made him do it. So I granted his last request. I killed him as he asked. I did our job. It didn't sit with Hendricks.
Can you blame him for his outburst?
Hendricks was mad because Moretti was our link to Taylor. A link I just severed and split open on a spike. And the guilt I carried all those years that I channeled inward, Hendricks channeled outward. At me. This was our chance to fix our mistake. And I messed that up. Hendricks said I may as well have doomed the world myself. I'd had enough. I knocked some sense into him. Sometimes it was the only way to get through. I told him what Moretti had told me about Bishop, Deimos, whoever he was. The mention of Bishop got Hendricks' attention. Last we saw him was back in '65, 10 years ago in Ethiopia. How Bishop knew Deimos, we hadn't a clue. But we'd figure this out, and we'd do it together. But right then, we had bigger problems. The Egyptian army couldn't hold the refinery. Plan bomb this place into the next life was a go. We had to get out of there. Now! We lost Taylor, but we had a lead. Moretti said Bishop could help us find Deimos, which meant he was our next stop.
This bishop that Moretti mentioned.
Damien Bishop, the man who found the cure. A vaccination to make 6115 victims human again.
A cure? Did it work?
It should have. Something was blocking it. Bishop had this theory. He believed somewhere there was an undead brain. A single creature controlling them as a collective hive. He believed that it somehow blocked the cure. We met him in 2065 when he... With the dead crawling all over, we needed a distraction. Something to keep the flesh eaters occupied so we could grab Bishop. We weren't dead killers yet, so we had to be a little more creative. And lucky for us, there were plenty of NRC birds in the sky, and the NRC's dead system still worked. Laser cannons built to auto-target any hostile aircraft.
So you created the diversion.
And Taylor's team prepped extraction. Unfortunately, it seemed our cover wouldn't last as long as we hoped. The remaining NRC noticed the radio silence from air traffic control and had sent soldiers to investigate. Command set exfil for a satellite station off base. We reset the dead system to target one of the automated planes circling above. Turns out the undead have a thing for giant explosions, like moths drawn to a porch lamp. And all we had to do was turn on the lights. Unfortunately, we couldn't exactly control the landing. Hendricks alerted Taylor the bird was down and the diversion in play. We took out the NRC and moved. Bishop was being held underground in the security station across the tarmac. Hendricks ordered weapons down. The base was crawling with NRC soldiers and undead. No need to draw any more attention to it. We crossed the tarmac. The tunnel ahead led to the security station. Hendricks took out the guards. I hacked into the system to find Bishop.
Why were the NRC still at the base? It was being overrun.
They needed the cure. They kidnapped Bishop's whole team and would do whatever it took to get their hands on it. They'd torture these researchers till the dead broke down the door and ripped them all to shreds if it meant they could save their people. It wasn't personal. It was self-preservation. With the secret out about Bishop's discovery, he'd become the most wanted man in the world. The NRC were just the first to grab him. It was every country for itself. Why do you think we were there? The Winslow Accord wanted the same thing the NRC did.
You can't rationalize anything when you're put up against the wall.
Nothing about this was rational. It was instinctual, animalistic, survival. He had been escorted to an interrogation room. We had to hurry. Behind us was an undead army. Once one got a whiff, the others would come running. Hendricks told Bishop who we were and that we had to move. But Bishop refused to leave without the other researchers. His friends. Our instructions were specific. Bishop was a priority. We didn't like it. But Bishop refused to leave without them.
Sounds like you were taking an awful risk.
He said for the cure to work, he needed them. They weren't expendable. Technically, we were.
In a way, you and the NRC were not so different in what you wanted and how far you were willing to go.
Our method was different. Our reasoning was not. No one wants to sacrifice themselves to save the world. But you like to think if the moment came, you'd have it in you.
Who was inside the cell?
Lieutenant Ziyed Khalil, member of the Egyptian army. Back in '65, he was a guard assigned to Bishop's research station. This was how we met. Hendricks cut him down and notified Taylor we were freeing the other hostages. Taylor said we didn't have the time. The base was swarming with additional NRC forces. They weren't letting their prize go that easily. There was a tunnel full of hostile soldiers between us and our exit. A cargo elevator ahead was the only way to the surface. No telling how close the dead were behind us. The remaining NRC forces were waiting for us above. They weren't about to let their prize prisoner go. If it meant getting the cure and saving their families, they were willing to die for it. And they weren't the only ones. We'd never seen dead killers in action before. To us, it was a spectacle. To them, it was just another day in the life. Wait a minute.
Do not be deceived by his lies. Remember your past. Remember when you first met John Taylor. Remember the truth.
Wait, this is wrong. This can't be real. I told you I met Taylor in Zurich during the 2065 Catardist Uprising, after I became a dead killer. Here I am with Taylor. And my limbs haven't been replaced yet. I'm still home. Why did you tell me that the first time I met Taylor was Zurich?
Focus. You need to complete this memory. What was Taylor's plan?
Well, we were still on for Exfil. But first, we had to blow the bridge. We followed Diaz. Both undead and NRC forces were converging on our position. Hall grabbed us after the hangar. She was to take us to Moretti, so we could blow the bridge. After the bridge, we were forced inside a comm center. Moretti took point. The rendezvous with Taylor was an APC garage just ahead. We were forced inside a comm center. Moretti took point. The rendezvous with Taylor was an APC garage just ahead. We could hear the undead screaming towards us. But that wasn't all. A robot horde was moving in. And Taylor would need some time to get the door open.
You were forced into the garage. What happened there?
Hendricks wanted to go back and get the other hostages. Taylor said Bishop was priority. After all, he had the killer. The rest were just collateral.
What did Taylor do?
He volunteered to take his team to get the others. We were to take Khalil and Bishop to exfil. We got on the APC. Bishop was the most important man in the world right now. We had to get him to exfil if it killed us. Hendricks needed a minute to get it going. And the undead were crawling all over us. The APC spun out and crashed. Hendricks moved Bishop into position. The drone evac was inbound. Once secured in the drop pod, it would return to collect. We just needed to hold back the Horde.
What happened?
Airspace was compromised. They had to pull out. Bishop was priority. We were expendable. We heard Taylor over comms. He was inbound and told us to hang on. No. I can't do this. I can't live this again. No. Please.
I am sorry. You must.
No, please!
If you wish to defeat Deimos, you must. To save the world, you must relive this.
I should have died. I felt myself fade. It was over. That was the day I met John Taylor. That was the day I became a dead killer.
That was the day you met Bishop, the man who found the cure, before he died at the Cairo aquifers.
On Moretti's instruction, we sought him out. We told him what we knew, which at the time was just a name, Deimos. He didn't know much, just that Deimos was responsible for the outbreak, and that a safe house in Singapore had a dossier on the guy. So we returned to Singapore. Little did we know, Gojulan had taken the city, and somehow gotten the undead to obey her. If we were gonna get to the safe house, we'd have to go through them. The vultures. Sadistic scavengers, ravaged by atrocity and time, driven by fear and insanity. We saw their victims strung up on display the moment we arrived.
When forced against the wall, the impurities of man can be revealed.
It was more than that. This was survivalism. When only 1% of the world's population is human, you either died and became the undead, or you survived by preying on the living. I had a bad feeling about this. Going through the undead was one thing, but vultures... they were savages. These scavengers were well equipped. I suppose that's what you get when you prey on your fellow man. We made quick work of them. Hendricks took point down the alley. From the sounds of it, the dead knew we were coming. Clearly, Singapore was happy to have us back in town. Overwatch confirmed the vultures were converging on the safe house. Civilians spotted on site. We didn't know if we could get through without additional collateral damage.
It's curious, the vulture's behavior. Willing to kill the living and the dead alike without prejudice. Survival of the fittest at its most primal. They act with reckless abandon without thinking of the consequences. They had to know. The more they killed other humans, the slimmer their chances became.
Don't think of them as humans. They're animals. Abandoned by any form of governing body, they dictated their own society. They were tribal, nomadic. In their eyes, man was as much a threat as the undead. The scavengers began realizing they weren't the only humans in the area. It was a matter of time before Gojulon. The scavengers began realizing they weren't the only humans in the area. It was a matter of time before Gojulon knew we were here. The safe house would... The scavengers began realizing they weren't the only humans in the area. It was a matter of time before Gojulon knew we were here. The safe house was beyond the gardens, but the gardens belonged to the dead. They smelled us lurking above. The scavengers began realizing they weren't the only humans in the area. It was a matter of time before Gojulon knew we were here. The safe house was beyond the gardens, but the gardens belonged to the dead. They smelled us lurking above. The scavengers